Welcome! You have just tuned in to Awakening the Gift with Psychic Medium Montana Greene, igniting a stream of consciousness within you. Are you ready to feel more comfortable talking about and trusting your own intuition? You can learn to embrace your own natural and subtle abilities. The possibilities are limitless. Hi, I'm Psychic Medium Montana Greene, and together we will look at all of life, yourself, and your fellow living beings through an expanded spiritual lens by examining spirituality, mysticism, and metaphysics. Stay tuned for insights into the human energy field, spiritual principles, and tools on how to care for and utilize these for the highest and greatest good of humanity. Awakening to our spiritual gifts has never been more on time. Awakening to the gift starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Montana Greene, and you are listening to Awakening the Gift on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour and let us ignite a stream of consciousness in you. Every second and fourth Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific, we will have insightful conversations about spirituality, higher consciousness, and all things metaphysical, helping to ignite a stream of consciousness in you. Welcome, beautiful souls, to another enlightening episode. Today, we are diving into the topic that many of us experience, but rarely understand on a deeper level, and that is burnout and boredom. Have you ever felt completely drained or restless and wondering if there's more to life than your current routines? What if these feelings are actually your intuition trying to get your attention? In this episode, we're going to explore why burnout might be more than just exhaustion and how it could be a signal from your higher self. We'll discuss the soul's innate need for growth and how the spiritual law of new beginnings demands change in our lives. Together, we'll uncover the powerful messages your intuition might be sending you and how to embrace these moments as opportunities for fresh starts. So sit back, open your minds, and let's discover the blessings hidden in burnout and boredom. So recently, I've had an alarming amount of clients and just people that I know remarking about how they feel bored, despite the fact that they've got really good lives. A lot of these people are very successful. They've been working on things over the last, decade or so to make their lives comfortable. They've established routines that have really supported their lives. Their financial situations are doing well. Their home lives are well. Their careers are good. But for whatever reason, they're missing something. And so I thought today I would use that as the topic to kind of go into this a little bit more about how our souls really desperately need fresh beginnings, new starts. Now, the problem is that our human selves, we all know this, our human selves love routines. We love certainty. We love our habits. We're all creatures of habits, right? We like to feel like we've got a grip on our lives. And so what we end up doing is establishing these routines and comfort zones that can be wonderful and support us in so many ways. But just like everything in life, they have an expiration date. So because I had so many clients remarking about this feeling of boredom and this restlessness that they just needed a little bit more out of life, but they couldn't quite put their finger on what needed to change. Because of that, I figured, let's talk about that today. So if any of you are into astrology, I'm certain that you are already keen to the premise that Pluto is making some very big shifts. So Pluto is currently in Capricorn for the last time in any of our lives. It will never be here again. Why is that significant? Basically, with Pluto being in Capricorn for this last 16 years, that means a chapter of all of our collective lives, and yes, individually as well, but a chapter in all of our collective lives is now coming to a close. And I think that that is in part one of the reasons why so many people are experiencing a feeling of life is good, but I'm missing something. Life is great, but I need something more. So, as I said, Capricorn, Pluto residing in Capricorn over this last 16 years, reflect back on your life since, approximately 2008. What were you starting to build at that time? What changes were you making in your life at that time? Well, those themes are now closing out. So technically, Pluto will remain in Capricorn until I believe November 20th. I should have double checked that, but I believe November 20th of 2024. So we've just got this last little bit of October and then a portion of November to reside in this energy, to tie up some loose ends, to put the finishing touches on the themes and goals that we have been working on for these last 16 years. Now, as Pluto moves into Aquarius, which again will be happening November 21st, 2024. When that happens, it's going to start a whole new 20-year cycle. That 20-year cycle is going to be requiring us to innovate, to do things differently, because Aquarius is the sign of the rebel, the innovator, the one that breaks the mold, the one that has those sudden epiphanies and creative genius flashes. Those are going to be the things that are going to be required moving into the next 20 years. So take a listen as I talk just a little bit about a client who agreed to let me share tidbits of her life experiences right now. I'm going to call her Mary. That is not her real name, but for the purpose of this conversation, Mary has agreed to let me tell her little story here. So Mary is a tremendously talented individual. She is a woman who's got a lot of influence. She's brilliant, she's charming, and she's built a very successful business over the last 16 years. Technically for her, it started in 2007. So she has been building this business to, create a nice foundation for herself financially, career-wise, reputation-wise, all of that. And she has come to a point now where it's like, great, I built this and everything is awesome. She doesn't have to work as hard for it anymore. And now she's a little bit bored. Can anybody relate to that? Has anybody gotten so good at something or created so much stability that all of a sudden it became just a little bit too easy? A little bit boring in some ways? That's where our friend Mary is at now. So with Mary, I had the pleasure of sitting down with her and casting her birth chart and giving just an astrological reading of what's coming up for her. I would also highly recommend for everyone to do that. But of course, me being me, I'm going to tell you to do that. But you are always welcome to find your path in whatever way feels right to you. So back with Mary here, she's talking about having dreams where in her dreams, just random dream people would come up to her and say, it's time to let it go. Now she'd wake up in the morning and be like, let go of what? What am I supposed to be letting go of? My life is good. I've got this business that I've built up. My home life is stable. My schedule's the way that I want it now. And she just could not shake this feeling that she needed something more. So essentially, when our intuition is speaking to us, yes, it can come in the form of dreams. A lot of the time, our intuition is going to communicate to us through our emotions. And again, emotions are just not logical. So it's not always so easy to pinpoint exactly what the problem is or even what the solution is, but you also kind of can't shake that feeling. So her intuition is telling her over and over again, she's got to make some changes. Life is fantastic. She's achieved so much, but she's got to make some changes, but she doesn't know what those changes are. Not yet. Now, that's Mary's story, but there's also so many other people that have been commenting on exactly the same thing. They've built something and it's great and they've achieved a level of stability and success, and now it's time for something new. So when your intuition is telling you, gosh, I'm a little bit bored. Life is great, but I'm a little bit bored. that is your intuition telling you it's just time for change. And needing change does not mean that what you previously have built or what you've previously investing your time in, it doesn't mean that those things aren't still valuable. It just means that your soul is looking for a new experience. Now, the interesting thing about that, today is October 8th. I'm looking out the window at the beautiful leaves on the trees, the gorgeous fall colors here in the Northern Hemisphere. And it's interesting that all of life around us moves through cycles of death and rebirth. Don't let the word death scare you. Death can be a very good thing because it always opens up the door for a new beginning. So as we look out into the world, and watch Mother Nature herself go through a cycle of concluding and ending that season of growth known as summer and getting ready to go into the hibernation, the winter months, why would we humans be any different? We're obviously going to go through these cycles where we just need to let something go or let something naturally die, fade away with love, and move in to that new, fresh beginning. As I said, of course, all humans, including myself, we all like certainty. So when we are at that threshold of those cycles of death and rebirth, sometimes it's a little bit of anxiety provoking. It can be hard to know what you need to do next or how come this isn't working anymore. That is another point that I want to bring up. With Pluto moving out of Capricorn and into Aquarius soon, it literally is going to demand that we do things differently. So things that have worked well in the past may not work so well in the future. That doesn't mean that you're making a mistake. That doesn't mean that anything is necessarily wrong, other than it's simply time to innovate. It is simply time for that fresh beginning. It's starting this cycle over again. So as the natural world goes through these cycles of death and rebirth, and we begin to embrace our appreciation for the cycles in our own lives, this is where we need to be now. So start prepping yourself a little bit for who do you want to be over the next 20 years? Because things will change. Things in the bigger collective are definitely going to change. And of course, that's going to filter down to all of us on an individual level. So giving some thought to that a little bit. And it's also totally okay if you don't know what that is. It's okay to be in that odd little place of not knowing, that little threshold of uncertainty for just a moment. Even those cycles of uncertainty can be very, very helpful because they can help us tune into ourselves, to really get quiet and go within and reevaluate what your value systems are now. Obviously, we all know that who we are today is not who we were 15 years ago. We change, obviously. And so now we're at that place of looking at what we want to change in ourselves, what we want to change in our lives for this next chapter. So obviously, there's a huge tie-in with this for personal growth, right? The most successful people in this world put a lot of time and energy into personal growth, personal development. So this can be an augury, an opportunity for exactly that. And that need, that impetus for personal development very much ties into the spiritual law of new beginnings. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to take a break really quick, but when we come back, we're going to talk more about the spiritual law of new beginnings and how exciting that can be. So stay tuned. We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to Awakening the Gift on Transformation Talk Radio. Be back in just a moment. We're back on Awakening the Gift with me, Psychic Medium Montana Greene. Today, we're taking a deep look into the relationship between burnout and boredom and the spiritual law of new beginnings. But before we continue, I want to make sure that everybody knows how to reach me. You can always get a hold of me or contact me through my website, which is whisperingleafpsychic.com. All right, let's get back into the spiritual law of new beginnings. So the spiritual law of new beginnings is pretty straightforward. It's essentially letting you know that everything in the world, the tangible world, everything in the spiritual world, everything in consciousness is always changing. There is literally nothing that is stagnant. There is nothing that is just holding in place. Everything is in motion. So the spiritual law of new beginnings is essentially stating that there's got to be these new beginnings. Now, here's the important thing that I really want everybody to know. The universe loves you. The universe wants to see you evolve as a spirit and develop yourself as a person and to have as many wonderful experiences as you can in this human life. And even some experiences that are not so categorically wonderful, right? What makes a spirit rich is experiences. In order to have those experiences, we've got to let go of the old and we've got to embrace the new. Now, here's what I want everybody to know about the spiritual law of new beginnings. Because everything in the universe and energy is always moving, always wanting to create, always wanting to transform, it demands that you initiate change in your life. So here's how this works. Either you're going to initiate change in your life, or the universe is going to push it on you. And when the universe pushes it on you, typically the human self does not experience that as welcomed. So if you are ever feeling that impetus that you need to make some changes, you need a new challenge, you need a new experience, maybe you need a new job, you need a new hobby, you need a new relationship, whatever it is, when you're feeling that impetus from inside, I strongly encourage you to take some baby steps. Again, it does not need to be drastic, but take some baby steps to initiate that change. The Mother Nature and the universe absolutely abhors stagnation. So again, take on those new challenges, learn those new skills, put yourself in a new environment, climb a new mountain, so to speak. Do those things so that the universe does not feel compelled to force it upon you. So I'm going to share a quick little story about how the universe, although loves us very much, can push some experiences on people and how they resist them. So again, I'm going to change the names and obviously respect everyone's privacy here. But I knew an individual many years back that was just an unbelievably stubborn individual. And a great individual, but very, very stubborn. The universe, their intuition, life itself was telling them that they needed to grow, as in their case, they needed a new skill and they needed a new job, but they just were so attached to their comfort zone. They had been doing this job that was not very, it wasn't very lucrative. It didn't really give them a lot of purpose, but they were comfortable there. It was their comfort zone. It's all they knew. The universe was constantly trying to push them out of that by one, making it so that they couldn't pay their bills. So this job, which was their comfort zone, was not paying them enough to live life, not even comfortably. The second way that the universe was kind of pushing change on them is that they continuously had discord with their coworkers and their bosses. Again, this is how the universe is like, hey, trying to coax you out of the nest, trying to push them out of there, but they just could not make that change. They were so stubborn and didn't want to make that change. Eventually, after ignoring all of the intuitive impulses, after ignoring all of the problems that were occurring from continuing to stay at this unfulfilling job, after so long of that, they ended up getting fired. And it's a little bit debatable about whether or not that was fair, and that's not, my point of telling this story, but the universe forced it on them. So this individual was not going to make that change on their own. The universe had given them plenty of nudges that they continuously ignored, and eventually they got fired and they were forced into that change. So I also have another example of a lovely person that just deserves such a great life, but she was stuck in a marriage that was awful. And I don't just mean, wow, your husband's a lazy person. I mean, he's literally not a kind-hearted individual. She wasn't being treated well. It was awful. And she just couldn't get herself out of it, even though she knew it was definitely toxic. It was horrible. So I believe what ended up happening is somehow she came across like a Facebook notification. I think it was something on Facebook that she noticed her husband had made a special friend. And so, long story short, she realized that he was having an affair. Now, that happened to have been the straw that broke the camel's back. She confronted him about it. He decided to leave her. So even though the universe were trying to push her out of that marriage for years and years and years, and again, not throwing shade towards anybody that's had a hard time leaving a relationship, because that can be very, very difficult, especially if you were the victim of narcissistic abuse. That's a whole other topic. Anyways, the universe was trying to coax her out of that for so long, and eventually it just made it impossible for her to stay, and it became his choice to leave her. Once again, just like our individual that was so stuck in the job, she no longer had a choice to stay in that relationship. Other examples are people that are very entrenched in their daily routines of not taking good care of themselves. The blood pressure gets very high. They're not feeling good. They get sleep apnea. There's all these problems in life. This is the universe and your higher self telling you that you need to make change. But oftentimes people don't want to make change until there's a real health crisis, until there's a cancer diagnosis or some other major diagnosis that forces them to then make the change. So there's 3 quick little examples of how the universe loves you, but the universe will push you out of the nest if you do not initiate the change on your own. So kind of coming full circle with this again, if you're feeling bored with anything, this is the impetus from your higher self, your intuition and the universe, that it's just simply time to open a new chapter, to turn over a new leaf, so to speak. Okay. So as we all know, a little bit of a cliche here, but it's very, very true. There is no growth in the comfort zone. We all invest so much time and energy into padding our comfort zones, to making our schedules the way that we like them, to making our routines the way that we like them. We make a comfortable place for ourselves. And yes, growth can happen from that, because we all know you need a stable foundation from which to grow. So sometimes comfort zones can absolutely serve a purpose. But again, nothing in this universe stays stagnant. Everything is moving. We're in a constant cycle of life and death, of death and rebirth, so to speak. So the comfort zones, even though you've built a lovely comfort zone, it might be time to change it. So if you're noticing the things that used to bring you happiness aren't bringing you happiness anymore, that's a sign. That's a sign to explore other options there. Additionally, we oftentimes are reticent to leave comfort zones because we know that we might be leaving people behind. We might be leaving group associations and even places behind, but it kind of demands it of us to put ourselves in new situations with new people. This also reminds me of a conversation I had with a very dear friend just the other day, and we were talking about love interest. And so it kind of came up for this friend of mine about, well, if this person isn't going to be in my life long term, then I don't even want to explore anything with them. And Spirit very clearly just came through very lovingly and reminded that we are not here to collect people. We're not here to collect people. Sometimes people are literally meant to be in our lives for just a short time, just to help us grow in some way, just to introduce a new idea or concept or energy to us, but they may not be meant to be there long term. And that is totally okay. Again, everything in this universe is transitory. It's always moving, always moving, always moving. So sometimes we have friends, or sometimes we have love interests, or we've got colleagues and other associations that definitely are beneficial to us, but they might only be around for a month or 2 or 6 months or 4 years, 6 years, but not until death do you part kind of thing. But this is still another way that we can grow. So please, when you move forward in life and you're thinking about whether it's friendships or love interests or career things, just remember, we are not here to collect people. It's almost like we have to have the catch and release philosophy of fishing, right? You want the experience of fishing. It's Great. I mean, I'm not a big fisher, but whatever. That experience of reeling in that fish, having the experience of catching it, take it off your line, throw it back in so that currency keeps going, so everything keeps moving. So have a catch and release attitude, or at least be okay with a catch and release philosophy in life when it comes to people and things. Additionally, never apologize for needing change. And on that, we are going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to explore more about the concept of being true to yourself, of really listening to what you need despite what everyone else around you is saying. So we're going to take a quick break. I'm Montana Greene, and you were listening to Awakening the Gift on Transformation Talk Radio. When we come back, we'll be exploring more about staying true to yourself, not making apologies for meeting your own needs, and how boredom and burnout can actually be a gift. All right, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. We're back on Awakening the Gift with me, Psychic Medium Montana Greene. Today, we're taking a deep look into the spiritual law of new beginnings and burnout and boredom and how they go hand in hand with the spiritual law of new beginnings. But before we continue, just want to make sure everybody knows how to get a hold of me. The best way to reach me is through my website, which is whisperingleafpsychic.com. All right, before we went to break, we were talking about never apologizing for meeting your own needs. So here's another little example, and this actually happened to me. So this is my own personal life. So I'm very much into fitness. I really enjoy it. And I had been at a specific gym for a handful of years. And I loved it, and I loved the people, and it was a great atmosphere, and everything was great, except that I was bored. And again, me being bored does not mean that that was not a fabulous gym and a wonderful culture and great, great people, but it meant that I needed to move my body in a different way. So I ended up leaving that gym because it was summertime. And for me personally, I just like to be outdoors in the summer. So also a little tidbit on fitness here. There's something, all fitness professionals know this, but it's something called periodization. Periodization is when you plan a complete change in your training protocols. So say, like for me, I was in bodybuilding, weightlifting, that type of thing, natural bodybuilding, which is why I'm so small. But bodybuilding and that type of thing, say you take some periodization time, which is what I did over the summer, which was just to go do speed and agility drills outside. So running full speed, barefoot across grass, right? Doing obstacle courses, doing reaction balls and plyometrics, and just a completely different training protocol. So again, for fitness, not all your workouts need to be in a gym, right? The great outdoors is an awesome place to be, especially in the summertime, in my opinion. Also, not all your workouts actually need to be on land. Go utilize the water. My point is this: switch it up. But one of the things that I noticed when I left that gym temporarily, I'll probably go back in the winter months, but when I left, I had a couple of people that were a little critical of me for doing that, almost like I was being a traitor or that I was somehow being disloyal, when in reality, my body just needed to move in a different way. I needed a new challenge myself. So again, never apologize for taking care of your own needs, because the bottom line of it is these other people that may be upset because you've left them behind or upset that you've moved on to something else. That might be their own abandonment wounds that are being triggered, but their abandonment wounds are not your responsibility. You are your responsibility. And nobody else knows what you're going through besides you. You are always the ultimate authority over your own life. So never apologize for taking care of your own needs. Now, also, let's talk about some environmental things here. When we are in a new environment, it changes us. We begin energetically to sync up and to harmonize with our new environment. which is also another reason why you want to be very selective about where you put yourself, right? Choose your friends wisely, choose your environments wisely. Nonetheless, when we're in those new environments, it gives us a new injection of energy that we then have to attune to and adapt to, as well as when you're in a new environment, it stimulates neurological pathways. Yeah. So now we're literally talking about your brain because you are a full human being, right? You've got a mind, you've got a body, and you've got a spirit. But talking about the brain, when you do new things, so totally different activities, totally different skill sets, that kind of things, it stimulates the brain in a new way to build new neurological pathways. So I don't know about you, but I'm all about taking care of that brain and making the body and the human condition be as healthy as possible for as long as possible. Also, when you take up any kind of new environment skills, it changes you on a personal development level, right? Because then you have to learn how to associate with new people. You have to learn the new ways. So it can be very, very beneficial for you to be in new environments. Also, a little tidbit on environments here. We're all creatures of habit. When we have our home or our living spaces or even our office spaces, we have routines within those spaces, and it creates energetic patterns within our spaces as well. So your bedroom feels a certain way until you change your bedroom. Your home feels a certain way until you change your home or change your environment. This reminds me of a reading that I had with a lady that was going through a very, very tough time. She was expecting a baby, but was having a lot of health issues. This was also during the time of COVID. So there was like extra stress added to the whole thing. But what she had done was to kind of get herself into a little bit of a rut. And again, we're all human. This happens to all of us at times. But what she was doing was sitting in her room on the bed with the shades closed and watching Netflix on the bed the entire time. So she'd never changed that routine. And what ended up happening energetically is her thoughts of anxiousness, of depression, of being scared, just that nervousness, all the kind of lower emotions, those things were starting to permeate energetically and build up in that environment. And that is another reason why it is so important to occasionally change your environment. So either go to a whole different place, right, and be there for a little bit, or change the environment that you're in. So changing your environment can be as simple as rearrange your furniture. And it is actually very true that rearranging your furniture, changing out the decor a little bit, disrupts those energy patterns so that some fresh energy can be in there. So in this particular client's case, what her guides had recommended to her is change what you're doing, which was literally stop watching the sad Lifetime shows, which I don't know why Lifetime movies for women are always about women being victimized. It's very strange. Anyways, she was watching a lot of that, and it was really making her anxiety and the depression energy stronger and bad. Her guides actually recommended watching comedy. Pull up some stand-up comedy on YouTube, watch a funny movie, but just to make those little micro changes, because she was kind of bedridden. I mean, it's like not like she could take herself to the park. It's not like she could go travel. She had to be home, but she could change up what was on the TV. She could change up what the colors were in the room, change up the bedding, change up all of these little things so that you're not in that energetic rut. So anyways, creating those new patterns for ourselves keeps us fresh. It keeps that ability to adapt also fresh. So always remember, if you're bored, try going somewhere new. Okay. Also, it really is very important to break old energy patterns within your physical body. So I'm going to do a little throwback to fitness here because I think this is the easiest to explain to people. It makes sense. It's very relatable. Like I was saying, I was very much into bodybuilding and it's all the weightlifting, but what weightlifting absolutely is not, it's not athletic performance in the same way that like sprint running is. It's not Pilates, it's not flexibility training, it's not plyometric, which is impact training. So we have to also move our bodies in different patterns, okay? So this can literally be every now and then, take shoes off outside, walk backwards. It's that easy. If you're right-handed dominant, try using that left hand a little bit more. We have patterns in our physical body that also get a little bit stuck, get a little bit stagnant. You know, the technical term for that is some work from William Reich, yes, which is body armor. So we all develop body armor, and we all develop these energetic patterns within our own physical bodies. So it's really important to move your bodies in different ways. Dance. Dance is really fantastic. Now, am I telling you that if you're feeling really bored in life, that just go dance and all your problems are going to go away? No, of course not. But it helps to change up the energy of your physical body. It helps the body release old stagnant energy and helps you develop new patterns here. Because a lot of our energy armor, our body armor, is connected to how we see ourselves. So it's our self-identity. Sometimes we have to change our self-identity. Sometimes we just outgrow who we used to be, and we have to shed that skin. So another interesting thing with patterns in the body, which is when we experience stress or strong emotions, whether they're happy emotions or negative emotions, but strong emotions. Oftentimes, because we're having to adult in life, we're not always able to address those powerful emotions in that moment. Like, say, for example, road rage, right? Has anybody been irritated by a driver on the road? Of course, but you can't always act on what you're feeling in that moment. But the cortisol still got spiked. The adrenaline still got spiked. And those hormones, those chemical messengers are a very real thing in the body. And if they're not moved out, then they become stagnant. And this can also lead to like fascia adhesions, things along those lines. But what I'm getting at is we don't always have the opportunity to process our feelings in the actual moment. What the subconscious mind does is holds on to them for us. Now, in just a minute, we'll get into that topic a little bit more, but we've got to take a break real quick. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about how our subconscious mind stores emotions in the body and why we need to move the body in a different way to disrupt those. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Montana Greene. You're listening to Awakening the Gift, igniting a stream of consciousness in you. We're going to be right back. And when we come back, we're going to discuss more about the energy body. Stay tuned. I'm Montana Greene, and you're listening to Awakening the Gift on Transformation Talk Radio. Today, we're exploring how the universe may actually be using boredom as a tool for the spiritual law of new beginnings. All right, let's jump right back into it. So, as I was mentioning before the break, we have energy patterns that develop on our physical body and in our energy field. And those are oftentimes called body armor. So we want to move our body in different ways. Even if you don't have the opportunity to process powerful emotions in that actual moment, you can still discharge those things by moving your body in a different way. So again, if you're a runner, consider doing, an obstacle course, or if you're a ballet person, maybe do some weightlifting, or if you're somebody that spends a lot of time sedentary, as much of our culture does these days, get up and walk around a little bit more, but move your body in all the different planes of motions. That's the side to side, the forward and back, the, top to bottom hinge, all of that kind of things, but move the body in ways that is different to your body. And that's just a good self-care thing to be doing for yourself on a daily basis. And it's best to be done before bed and also in the mornings. Okay, so new beginnings, right? As I said, I've had so many individuals that have been remarking that they're just bored in life. Like there's nothing actually wrong, but somehow that spark is gone. Somehow it's just not, their engines aren't getting revved, right? I also had a client recently that was sharing, she said something that was actually pretty sad. In a reading, she wanted to know when she was going to die, as in she is so bored in life that she wanted to know when the Great Spirit was just going to take her out. And now it is my personal policy. I do not predict death for anyone, right? It's just my personal policy. I don't do that. But the guidance that came back is she just needs to change her routine. She doesn't need to die. She just needs to change her routine. Essentially, what she was doing is she had just gotten so much into a rut of going to work. And I know that this is relatable, but going to work, coming home, and watching a screen all night, whether it's TV or whether it's the phone, but that's what her life was. And her guidance very much was she just needs to go seek a new adventure. She needs to go do something different. So again, the power of different is so, so strong. So go seek a new adventure. And again, you have permission to be imperfect. Every day is a great day to suck at something new. And of course, we mean that lovingly. Think about this. When we're learning a new language, we're going to mispronounce some things. We're going to say some things wrong. When we're learning a new skill, we're going to screw it up sometimes, right? You have permission to screw it up. Okay. You don't have to be perfect. Life is never going to be perfect. Things are never going to be like that. So it's okay if you don't know what you're doing yet, right? So let's also talk about that. There's always that little threshold, okay? So in a daily cycle, we've got our daytime and then it moves into the evening and there's a little bit of a threshold, right? Between the day and night, right? That little evening period. Same thing, when we're coming out of the nighttime, there's dawn. It's not quite the day, but it's also not the night, right? So collectively, all of humanity is going to go through a little bit of that dawn period, that threshold of not really knowing what they're going to do next. Now, here's the beautiful thing. Life teaches us through contrast. So whatever in your life doesn't spark joy, whatever isn't like, somebody said this to me recently, if it's not a hell yes, then it's just a hell no. So again, if there's something in your life that is just kind of blasé and it's not revving your engine, it's not making you excited, this can be a clue of what needs to change. Now let's also talk about how slow this change can be. Pluto, very, 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 very slow moving planet. Okay. So again, it's very true that we're going to all do this in baby steps. Okay. There's not necessarily the drastic 180 that has to happen. You are totally allowed to not know what you're doing for a minute, to make little micro changes, to take little baby steps. It's totally appropriate. And again, there is always going to be critics in the world. We can't get away from them, but you don't need to care about it, right? And I know many of you already know this, but when other people are criticizing your choices or what you're doing in your life, isn't it interesting how much attention they're putting on you? Wouldn't that interest serve them better to put it on themselves? So don't take it personally if somebody is criticizing you or has something to say. Now, in closing, this is a pivotal time. We really are all coming up collectively and individually on a whole brand new chapter. The energy of Aquarius is, again, that rebel. It's the one that is also very based in community. So this can be an excellent opportunity to reevaluate the community, the company that you keep, and determine, are they still with you? Have you outgrown them, or are you needing new stimulation? Everything in life is constantly changing, right? And we should change with it. So reevaluate where your passions are. It's okay if you don't know what that is. It's okay if you're feeling bored, even though your life is great, right? That last chapter, the things that we've already been building and establishing for the last 16 years, it doesn't mean that they are now useless. It doesn't mean that you don't still love them. And it doesn't mean that they're not still going to benefit you in some way, but it does mean that it's time to interject some fresh energy in there. So with love, I encourage everyone to develop themselves in a new way. Go be the stranger in a strange land for a minute. Go take up that skill that maybe you suck at. Go do that thing that you're a little bit afraid of, just for the experience of being outside that comfort zone. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining me on today's episode. And I wish everyone out there in radio and internet land all the best. And may the fourth force be with you, which is my funny little way of saying the higher power. All right, go forth and prosper and be well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, we'll see you next, the fourth Tuesday of every month. So that's a wrap. And I hope that you're walking away with a new perspective on burnout and boredom, and not just seeing them as challenges, but as actually spiritual signals guiding you towards growth and transformation. Remember, your higher self is always, always communicating with you. Yes, you. Everyone, your higher self is always communicating with you. You cannot be separated from your higher self ever, because your higher self is the energy, the spirit, the soul that is animating your physical body. And it's always talking to you. And it's talking to you in some unexpected ways. So as you move forward, embrace the changes that come your way and trust the spiritual law of new beginnings is working in your favor. So when you listen to your intuition and you align yourself with that divine plan, things can be very beautiful. Thank you again for joining me on this journey today. If you found this episode helpful, don't forget to share it with somebody who also might benefit from this message. Until next time, keep listening to your inner wisdom, and may your path be filled with growth, joy, and new beginnings. See you next time. Have a great week. You have been listening to Awakening the Gift with Psychic Medium Montana Greene, igniting a stream of consciousness within you. To find out more of what is needed to shift your consciousness above the ordinary, tune in to Transformation Talk Radio every second and fourth Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific. Each show we examine spirituality, mysticism, and metaphysics, along with the tools to help us achieve our life's missions. To connect with me, visit whisperingleafpsychic.com.